Secret or hidden bosses are pretty common in JRPGs. They are usually hidden away in strange, out-of-the-way places, waiting for curious adventurers to find them. While defeating them isn't required to finish the game, doing so can often lead you to special items or events that would have been missed otherwise. Even ignoring all that, it can be a fun challenge to take on these bosses. Sometimes, you'll have to change the way you fight altogether, whether in terms of strategy or the equipment you use, in order to stand a chance against them. While the first two Digimon World games on the PS1 didn't really offer much in terms of secret bosses, that is not the case for Digimon World 3. There is a massive world in this game for you to explore, and there are plenty of big, scary Digimon lurking within it. Some of them can be found pretty early in the game, while the others become available as soon as you get to the Amaterasu server, which is about the halfway point. Today, we're gonna go find them, take them on and see just how strong they are. Well, I hope you've got your snacks and 7 liters of Pepsi ready, because it is time to go on the hunt for the secret bosses of Digimon World 3. Okay, so before we begin, here are a couple of things to keep in mind. First, the optional bosses of this game aren't created equal. You really don't need to take them all on near the end of the game, with maxed out Digimon of your own. In fact, some of them are much weaker than others, even if you can only battle them quite late in the game. I'll try my best to put them in a sequence which I think makes the most amount of sense. Also, there is a whole side quest you need to do in this game if you want to get more rookie partners, like Greymon for example. In order to complete them, you need to beat ultimate level counterparts of the rookie you want. While these can count as optional bosses in a way, they aren't really tough at all. And I don't think it's worth covering each of those fights here. I mean, really, they're pretty terrible. And in terms of strategy, here are a couple of tips. Speed is the most important stat in this game. With really high speed, your Digimon can get 2 turns in a row, or even evade physical attacks altogether. There are not a lot of magic attacks in this game, so training speed can really help. There are also some accessories that help with evasion, so it might be a good idea to acquire them beforehand. On the topic of accessories though, I suppose I have to talk about the most notorious accessory of them all, the Counter Crest. It is an absolutely broken thing which invalidates any challenge that the game has to offer, and I find that the game is more enjoyable if you avoid it altogether. With that out of the way, let's get started. The very first optional boss of this game becomes available right at the very beginning. It's literally a couple of steps away from Asuka City, where you start the game. Digimon World 3 has an open world feel to it. If you can access an area, the game won't stop you from exploring it, even if you're not quite ready for the challenges that certain areas might present. If you wanted to, you could visit the Protocol Ruins within a few minutes after you get your Digimon. It would not be a very good idea to do so, but you could do it if you wanted to. The funny thing is, you have to go to the Protocol Ruins pretty early on anyway, as part of the main story to find the Serious City leader. After coming to these stairs, someone playing this game for the very first time could be forgiven for thinking that you're supposed to climb them and talk to this somewhat creepy looking entity on top. If that happens though, there ain't no turning back, as Pharaohmon here will challenge you to a fight. To be fair, Pharaohmon isn't insanely strong or anything like that, even though he's supposed to be a mega level Digimon. You are expected to run into him pretty early on in the game after all. Even then, your Digimon should still be around level 10 to be on the safe side. Pharaohmon's special attack, Necromist, is quite dangerous, as it has a very high chance to inflict poison. Poison in this game, for your Digimon anyway, will hurt your Digimon for about 25% of their max HP every turn. Oddly enough, it behaves differently for certain enemy Digimon for some reason. Still, Necromist can be a problem if you don't have items to recover from poison, which can be acquired beforehand to make things easier here. Another option is to get the Antidote Ring accessory from the pawn shop, which would make your Digimon more resistant to poison. Pharaohmon has a glaring weakness to fire-type attacks. If you started with Agumon, then you should have Greymon by this point. Greymon gets access to decent fire-type attacks quite early on, and they will absolutely decimate Pharaohmon before the poor thing even figures out what's going on. So if you can do it, turning on the heat on Pharaohmon will lead to a quick win. If you have Guilmon, you can try to blast Digivolve to WarGrowlmon and use the Atomic Blaster to annihilate Pharaohmon that way. All you have to do is have Guilmon be level 4 or higher, and fill up the blast gauge by letting Guilmon get beaten up. In any case, there are a variety of options here even in the early game, which you can use to take down Pharaohmon. As a reward, you will get the Old Wand. The old pieces of equipment have a pretty intricate, yet very annoying and grindy, side quest associated with them, which I'll talk about some other day. After Pharaohmon, we'll have to wait a bit for the next optional boss fight, as we'll need to gain access to the south sector first. Once we get here, we'll be able to check out the jungle grave. This can be a very nasty place, especially early on in the game when you first arrive. There is a random enemy that can be found here, who you really don't want to mess with. If you do run into Musiamon, try to run away immediately, unless you are really overleveled or something. These Musiamon can annihilate you with relative ease, and are basically optional mid-bosses on their own. Do not mess with them, unless you want to see the game over screen. Although considering how even trying to run away isn't a guarantee for safety in this game, simply being confronted by a Musiamon can be enough by itself to put an end to your journey. Assuming you do get through the jungle grave without falling prey to these disturbing samurai Digimon, you will eventually find your way blocked by Zanbamon. He won't let anyone through without a fight. So you may be wondering, is this a boss battle too? Well, sort of. Zanbamon only needs one attack to instill fear within your Digimon, who run away immediately afterwards. What happened here? Who knows? This, of course, is part of the main story. You'll then have to run back and forth for a while till you get the smelly herb, which will make Zanbamon run away and allow you to continue your journey. As an added bonus, the Musiamon will leave this place along with Zanbamon as well. But I'm sure you're all thinking, well, if this whole thing is part of the main story, then why are you talking about this right now, editor man? You've gone crazy. I'm calling my mommy. Don't call your mommy just yet, my friend. For you see, while Zanbamon does run away here, many people don't know that you can actually find him again for a proper rematch. Not too far from here, we can find the Jungle Shrine. This is a very creepy place, filled to the brim with disturbing, alternate universe Numemon. The ones around here are not the nice, friendly kind we've gotten used to from Digimon World 1. Deeper into the shrine, we will find the catacombs. You may notice that there are Musiamon around here. That is because in these catacombs, we'll find our old friend Zanbamon. This is the place he decided to call home after running away during our last encounter. But no one is running away now. It's time for our fateful rematch. While Zanbamon can be fought here relatively early in the game, it would be ideal to wait until you have some strong Digimon on your side. It may seem strange to you that I say that while going into this battle with a lone Growlmon, but the footage you're seeing here is from the hardcore challenge run I did for this game. This ain't no ordinary Growlmon, let me tell ya. He's the kind of big bro that we can all rely on. Anyway, Zanbamon can do one of two things. Either a normal attack, which can hit pretty hard, or the much more dangerous Hunting Knife. You see, Hunting Knife has the potential to instantly knock out your Digimon. It's not guaranteed, but the insta-kill effect has a very high chance of triggering. It's a simple moveset, but quite effective. Like with the Antidote Ring, it may be worthwhile to pick up some Prayer Rings beforehand, which would make your Digimon more resistant to the insta-kill effect. In addition, if your Digimon have a very high speed stat, they may be able to evade the Hunting Knife entirely. So work on some speed training before you come here. Zanbamon doesn't really have any glaring weaknesses like Pharaohmon. His wisdom is higher than his defense, so you might want to rely on physical attacks instead of magic-based ones. But beyond that, pray that Hunting Knife doesn't one-shot your Digimon and use your strongest attacks to put him down. Physical finishing moves should do well, regardless of the element. After the battle, Zanbamon will give the rusty katana as a reward. If you are a simp for Kotemon, then you'll want to get this item for later. The poor guy is well and truly broken now, and just wants to be left alone in this sad, depressing place. Dang, kinda feels like we're the bad guy here. Anyway, next up is an optional boss that can be completely missed if you don't fight them during a very specific time frame. At a certain point in the game, you are teleported to the real-world Magasta base in order to try and stop the launch of the Juggernaut, which the evil organization AOA is gonna try to use to take over the world. The catch is that you only have 180 seconds to try to stop the launch. There are a whole bunch of cool items lying around, so it's understandable if someone ends up wasting most of their time trying to get all of them. Most people who've played this game would remember the Mech Soldier boss fight here. It's not a difficult battle, really. The only problem one could have is against the Gyromon. It has the ability to counter physical attacks, so if you hit it too hard without knocking it out, your Digimon might end up hitting the floor instead. But as long as you're careful about that, you'll be fine. While pretty much everyone knows about the Mech Soldier, what some of you may not know is that there is another boss hiding around here. There's no need to confront this boss, as the story will continue the way it is supposed to after the time runs out. But if you do feel like it, you can face off against the Royal Guard. Like the soldier though, the Royal Guard isn't much of a boss fight. He starts off with the Vamon, which is not a problem whatsoever. He then pulls out a very spicy looking Waidmon, or maybe this is Waidmon Crimson mode or something. It has a very strange attack which stops your Digimon from digivolving. Not that you would usually be doing that in the middle of a battle in this game, but okay. There's nothing even remotely interesting about this Waidmon besides that. The final Digimon here, shockingly, is a MachineDramon. It really does feel quite bizarre to face off against the final boss of World 1 like this. They really don't show MachineDramon any respect in this game though. Its normal attack hits more than once and that's it. It can also be taken down pretty easily. So yeah, this optional boss wasn't as interesting as Pharaohmon or Zanbamon, but it does exist. We get the wing helmet as a reward for taking the time to beat this guy. But we still can't stop the launch of the Juggernaut. Oh well. For the next few bosses, we're gonna head on over to the north sector of the Amaterasu server. First, let me provide some context for what you're about to see. Before we got to the Magasta base earlier, we had to go through the Ice, Fire and Dark dungeons, which all have their own gimmicks when it comes to moving around them. The Ice dungeon is kinda similar to the Ice Cave in Pokemon GSC, really. It's quite annoying and requires trial and error to figure out how to get through it. The Fire dungeon is full of landmines that reduce your Digimon's HP to 1. Very fun, as I am sure you can imagine. And the Dark dungeon literally throws you into the dark, and you have to light up the place with certain pedestals. If you step on the wrong tile, you'll have to start over. Each of these dungeons had a very forgettable boss fight that you had to go through before you could get to the Magasta base. The reason I'm talking about this is that the Amaterasu server is essentially a carbon copy of the Asuka server, except with a creepy vibe, which means that this server also has its own version of the Ice, Fire and Dark dungeons. They are completely optional, but hey, that's why we're here. The layouts of the dungeons might seem the same, but the way you need to get through them is quite different this time. The first optional boss here is the Ice Master, who starts with Vaikmon. By this point of the game, Vaikmon can often be found as a random enemy, and this one is pretty much the same as a wild Vaikmon. Next up is the cool Antilamon, and it's the same thing as before, nothing to be worried about. And the final Digimon here is a Scorpiomon, who does have a special attack in Titanic Wave, and it can hit pretty hard if your Digimon has a low Wisdom stat. For the most part, Wisdom, which is basically magic defense, tends to be a pretty forgettable stat in this game, as magic attacks aren't exactly all that common, especially not strong ones anyway. So when they do show up every now and then, they tend to hurt. But Scorpiomon doesn't always use Titanic Wave, and the normal attack isn't anything to write home about. So while Scorpiomon is a bigger threat than the other two, it's still not that big of a deal. After the battle, we get an MP chip. Not much of a reward, but then again, it wasn't much of a fight either. The Fire Master is up next, and this is a particularly sad battle. Fire Master doesn't appear to be someone who cares about team diversity all that much, as 2 of his 3 Digimon are Lynxmon, and they are very, very weak. They can be easily defeated by pretty much anything really. The final Digimon is a Creepymon, and it's a pushover as well. What can I say? The developers really didn't care much about this section of the game for some reason. They could have at least given these optional bosses some powerful Digimon to work with, but no. It's quite sad and disappointing. While it does have access to a special attack in Darkness Chaos, it's pretty rare and I did not even get a chance to see it. Why does the Fire Master have a Digimon with a dark attack? Just another question for philosophers to ponder. And the disappointment train keeps chugging along as we get a pitiful mind chip for our trouble. Really, getting across the minefield in the Fire dungeon was more troublesome than the boss. The Dark dungeon is up next, and it is quite annoying to even move around. The people who designed the layout for this area were pretty disturbed, I'd say. But after making our way through it, we'll find the Dark Master. Will he be the one to give us a real challenge? Let's find out. He starts with a Ghoulmon, Besides the normal attack, it can also use Darkness Chaos, but rarely does so. It's pretty flimsy though, so it'll go down pretty quickly, even if you just use normal attacks yourself. Next up is another Dark Master in Piedmon, or Paidmon depending on how you wanna pronounce it. It does look really cool, and its basic attack shows it throwing knives at you. But that's it. Like the MachineDramon we fought earlier, this Dark Master does not live up to its name, and can be beaten without any problems. The final Digimon for the Dark Master is Infamon, another fan favorite. And Infamon does have something more to offer than a basic attack, as it can use Darkness Chaos, which is a very powerful magic attack. But similar to that Scorpiomon who we fought earlier, Infamon won't use Darkness Chaos every turn, and its normal attack is, like all the others, quite ordinary. And while Infamon does have good offensive capabilities, its defense is quite lacking, so it can't really stick around too long if you just keep attacking. All three of these dungeon masters were, for me, quite boring, more than anything. What a wasted opportunity to create some really tough endgame optional bosses. Oh well, what can you do? The reward for beating the Dark Master is the EXP adapter, which increases gained EXP in battle for the Digimon who equips it. Unlike the depressing rewards from the other two masters, the EXP adapter is unique, and this is the only way to get it. So if you want to do some heavy grinding, you'll want to get this item first. And now, it's time to talk about the Black Digimon. You see, the optional bosses in this game can be divided into two types. The unique ones like Pharaohmon, Zanbamon and the other bosses we've talked about so far, and the black or dark counterparts of Digimon we can acquire ourselves. Similar to the Dungeon Masters, they can be found in the Amaterasu server, in locations where we fought bosses, optional or otherwise, over in the Asuka server. Once you get to Amaterasu, you can fight the black Digimon in any order, really. I'll try to talk about the ones I found to be on the easier side first. Here's something fun to keep in mind. As the black Digimon are similar to the Digimon we can get ourselves, they have access to finishing moves just like our Digimon. To start things off, we're going to the Dum Dum Factory. During the main game, we had to fight High-Endromon here while looking for a Numemon. In this server, we will find Black WarGrowlmon in place of High-Endromon. He has been pretty bored lately and wants a fight. I guess we'll have to give it to him. Black WarGrowlmon has some pretty good stats, but his water and thunder weaknesses are pretty noticeable there. Similar to how Pharaohmon could be toasted by fire, some water or thunder type attacks will do you a world of good in this fight. If you have Growlmon like me, then his finisher would be pretty effective, as it's a thunder element attack. In terms of offense, things are really awkward for Black WarGrowlmon. His finisher, the Atomic Blaster, is a magic type attack, which is ridiculous considering he has significantly higher strength compared to his spirit or magic attack, which is quite low. To add on to this, he can also use Mega Strength, which, and you won't believe this, increases his strength. So essentially, Black WarGrowlmon has been screwed over by the developers. If Atomic Blaster was a physical attack, at least things would make sense here. As things are though, you won't have any trouble with this guy. Keep hitting till he falls over, and begins to wonder why things are the way they are. After the fight, we get the Hazard Armor, which Guilmon can make use of. Not too shabby. Next up, we're gonna head over to Tyranno Valley, where we fought Master Tyrannomon near the beginning of the game. Here, we'll find Black Imperialdramon waiting for us. He won't let us leave before we beat him, so that's what we'll have to do. I think we can all agree that he definitely looks awesome. Imperialdramon's finisher is Mega Crusher, which is a non-elemental physical move even though he's launching a pretty magical beam in our direction. I think WarGrowlmon would be pretty annoyed by this. The best bet here is to have a high defense stat, or to use defense boosting moves in battle. All things considered, Mega Crusher does not hit as hard as it should. The only other notable move he can use is Mechanical Bash, which is nothing to be concerned about. Our opponent here has higher wisdom than defense, so physical attacks are the way to go. Other than that, this is a reasonably easy fight, as long as you aren't severely underleveled. Keep hitting hard and eventually, this boss will bow down in front of you too. After the fight, we get the Hazard Helmet as our reward, which is another Guilmon exclusive item. Very nifty, especially if you're a simp for Guilmon. Next up, we're heading over to the control room, where we fought Datamon back when we were trying to get into Asuka City while it was locked down. Black WarGreymon, my favorite Digimon, is waiting for us in Datamon's spot. Let's see how hardcore he is in this game. Black WarGreymon looks very cool and has better stats across the board other than a substantially lower wisdom when compared to Black Imperialdramon. His wisdom, in fact, is quite a bit lower than his defense, so magic attacks would be more useful here. If your Digimon have a high tolerance for the dark element, that would help too, as Black WarGreymon's finisher, Terra Destroyer, is a physical dark element attack. The overall power of Terra Destroyer is lower than the Mega Crusher we faced earlier, which makes me very sad. Black WarGreymon can also use Black Dart, which hits multiple times, but it's a magic-based attack, while his spirit, as in magic attack, is quite low, so no worries there. Overall, another pretty easy boss fight, considering how late in the game you'll be when you get here. This game did not do my favorite Digimon justice. For winning, we get the Platinum ID, which helps unlock higher level training at the gym. A worthwhile reward, I would say. Next, we're going to the Catacombs, where we fought Zanbamon earlier. In Amaterasu, we'll find Black Seraphimon waiting for us. He wants to punish us for our sins. Well, he'll try to do that anyway. Black Seraphimon is a weird boy. His strength is abysmally low, and honestly, the only somewhat respectable stat here is wisdom. But that's not the worst part. You see, just like how they butchered WarGrowlmon in this game, Seraphimon's finisher, the Seven Heavens, for some baffling reason, is a non-elemental physical move, and a very weak one at that. I mean, who saw that move and thought, yup, that seems like a physical move to me? Why did the developers do this? It's hard to say. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe they really did not like WarGrowlmon and Seraphimon. In any case, it's about as effective as a wet noodle against a hard object. Unless your Digimon have stupidly low defense or something. It is more effective against evil, which I guess would be Digimon like Devimon or Myotismon. Still, it's a very weak move, and the special effect is extremely niche at best. The only saving grace for this fallen Seraphimon is that it has access to Giga Heal, which will heal him to max health whenever he uses it. In my battle against him though, even at really low health, Black Seraphimon did not use Giga Heal, which meant this turned out to be a very quick boss battle for me. The only reason I put him above the last few bosses is because he can, potentially, be more of a nuisance because of Giga Heal. But really, just hit this fallen angel as hard as you can, until it falls to its knees in submission. As our reward, we get the Sniper Suit, an exclusive item for Mon. Something exclusive for Patamon would make more sense, but I guess the devs really did not care about this at all, so maybe we shouldn't either. Our final two secret bosses are a cut above the ones we've battled so far. An argument could be made for which of our next two opponents is stronger, but as far as I'm concerned, it's better to go to the Protocol Ruins first. In place of Pharaohmon, the one we started this whole journey with, we'll find Black MegaGargomon, another Digimon I'm quite fond of. He thinks it won't be easy to beat him, and he's kinda right. The stats might not look too impressive, not to mention that our adversary here has two glaring weaknesses to water and thunder type attacks. But this guy is not meant to be taken lightly, trust me. In this game, Mega level Digimon are divided into categories, and some of them are inherently stronger than others, and have stat bonuses when it comes to their offense as well as their defense. Black MegaGargomon here is a pretty tough cookie, so don't let the stats fool you. If you go into this fight without adequate training or at a low level, he'll make you go boom very quickly. As you can see, I found this out the hard way. I made sure I was properly powered up before I came back for round 2. While Black MegaGargomon is kinda slow, it has access to Mega Break, which can reduce your Digimon's speed. Trust me, that can be pretty deadly. If your speed gets too low, Black MegaGargomon will start taking 2 turns in a row, and even get a lot better at evading your attacks. If you have the move Speed Up, you can nullify Mega Break using that. The giant missile finisher is a physical machine type attack, which can hit really hard, especially if your machine tolerance is on the low side. If you need a quick machine element boost, you can get the machine ring accessories, which will help in a pinch. If you have access to magic type thunder or water attacks, now would be the time to bring them out. If you've trained Renamon as one of your partners, then you should have a bunch of thunder type attacks ready to go. This is a tough battle, simply because Black MegaGargomon can feel kinda overwhelming if you aren't ready for him. But if you come prepared, then you should be able to take him down eventually. After beating him, you'll get the Wild Helmet, an exclusive item for KingNumemon. Well, I guess Terriermon isn't in the game, so KingNumemon stuff will have to do. And now, it's time to face off against the one who I believe to be the strongest of the black secret bosses. You'll have to make your way to the sewers, the area beyond the black WarGrowlmon we fought earlier. In the place where we fought the lonely Warumon Zaimon, we will find the one and only King. A Digimon who fans of this channel would be quite familiar with, but perhaps even they've not seen him before in this particular way. For our final opponent is the Black KingNumemon. I was reminded of an old friend from Digimon World 1 when I first laid eyes on this magnificent creature. Perhaps this is an alternate reality version of that friend. Anyway, the king intends to make you bow in front of him, and if you're not careful, that's exactly what will happen. Black KingNumemon is the only unique black Digimon, as we don't have access to this Digivolution ourselves, which is a shame. He has a very simple moveset. The only special attack is Dark Pupil, which stops you from running away. It doesn't really make sense to me, as you wouldn't be running away from a boss battle anyway, but maybe it's there for thematic reasons? I suppose this Numemon does have beautiful eyes after all. Dark Pupil is not what you need to be concerned about though. What you'll quickly learn to fear is the king's basic attack. I am not joking, for you see, it can inflict paralysis at a very high rate. In this game, if your Digimon gets paralyzed, they become frozen. While frozen, they have a very high chance of not doing anything at all. If your Digimon gets frozen, you won't even be able to use an item. While the king doesn't really hit too hard, he'll simply try to keep you stun-locked and chip away at your Digimon's health slowly. Things can get very scary in the sewers, as you can see. My first attempt went terribly, as the king made my Metal Garurumon lower his head in shame. A key accessory that might almost be necessary for this battle is the Revive Ring, which can keep your Digimon from being frozen. In addition, as the normal attack is a physical move, having a high speed stat can help evade it as well. Gallantmon, for example, can learn Speed Up, which can be a game changer in this fight. With maxed out speed, Black KingNumemon probably wouldn't even land a hit on you. Speed Up is kinda broken really, but you might need to rely on it to get through this. This battle is not that complicated. If your Digimon gets frozen and can't get out of it, there's not much you can do. With the Revive Ring and high speed, you may be able to avoid paralysis. If that happens, hammer away at the king with your best moves, especially magic ones, as the king's wisdom is quite a bit lower than his defense. You'll need luck on your side if you wish to dethrone Black KingNumemon, but if you stick to it and keep praying to the Elder God Digimon, you'll eventually be able to get a win over the king. Even after you win, the main character will still acknowledge who the one true king will always be. For showing him the proper respect, the king will throw the bit adapter at you, which increases the amount of bits earned at the end of a battle. Make sure to thank the king for his generosity. Now then, those were all the secret or optional bosses of Digimon World 3. But as some of you may know, there are actually two different versions of this game. While Digimon World 3 is the US version, the PAL or European version of the game is called Digimon World 2003. And there is a lot more going on here besides a simple name change. In World 3, the game ends with the final boss fight against Galacticmon. But in 2003, you can continue to play the game after that, although the accessible locations in the post-game are quite limited. Still, there is some very cool stuff you can only do in the post-game. But today, I only wanted to talk about the secret bosses available in every version of the game. I'll make a follow-up to this video for all the post-game stuff. This video has already gotten too long and there's quite a bit to unpack there, including the quest to find the true final boss of this game. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so by subscribing to our Patreon, where we have exclusive content. There is some very nifty stuff there if you want to check it out. Or you can support us by buying me some Pepsi. One can never truly have enough Pepsi, am I right? And now, a quick word from my amazing patrons. Thank you Chaos Untold, Hero Emblem, Spider President, Blake CN1, Vanilla, Yog and Sevasti Mattis for your continued support. And here's a special shout out to McTivil, an amazing friend of the channel. Your friendship keeps nerdhood strong. Thank you McTivil, my friend. And now, for an ultra strong shout out to the amazing trio that keeps the digital world safe and sound. A huge thank you to Shamine, the Postman and Derpin Goose for your support. You're all the best like no one ever was. In all honesty, I feel like the devs did not put enough effort into the design of these secret or optional bosses. I mean, they did all the hard work with actually creating them, but then they made most of them a bit too boring and weak. I fought them all with a single Digimon and still didn't feel like there was much of a challenge besides the final two bosses. I can't imagine anyone having a hard time with a full party of 3 partners. It's very strange, but perhaps the PAL version's exclusive postgame will offer us a real challenge to sink our teeth into? We'll find out soon enough. Well, that's all I have for you today. Take care of yourself and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye!